You bring perfect data, flawless charts, and a completely rational recommendation to the meeting, and yet the answer is still no. When you present raw numbers, you instantly activate Broca's and Wernicke's areas, the regions responsible for language processing and comprehension. The listener's mind immediately begins scanning the data for logical gaps. To move past this critical filter, a communicator must look beyond the quality of the data and focus on how the message itself is delivered. Facts alone merely inform. To move an audience toward a decision, language must be used as a functional tool to navigate past these initial analytical defenses. In 1978, Harvard researcher Ellen Langer illustrated this using a simple library copy machine. She wanted to see how the phrasing of a request changed whether or not people would let her cut the line. A direct request to cut in got a 60% compliance rate. But when she added a meaningless reason, simply saying, "because I have to make copies," compliance jumped to 93%. This trigger remains effective digitally. A 2019 study tested a mock nutrition app, shown in its original German interface. Users reported higher trust when the app stated it made choices based on this information. Even without explaining how, this justification increased confidence. These results suggest that the mind often prioritizes the structural presence of a reason over the actual quality of the information provided. Using this reflex is the first step in addressing a skeptical audience. To build long-term belief, we use a broader framework, the classic triad of ethos, pathos, and logos: credibility, emotion, and logic. These pillars align with psychological priorities. Ethos establishes authority, fulfilling the foundational requirement for safety and reliable guidance. This hierarchy was famously detailed by Abraham Maslow, who argued that basic security needs must be addressed before an individual focuses on higher goals. Within this structure, pathos creates a sense of belonging and connection, while logos provides the rational brain with the evidence it needs to justify an emotional decision. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. utilized this exact structural alignment, combining high moral authority with intense emotional resonance and logical clarity to mobilize a movement. When a message is built on this triad, it doesn't just deliver information. It resonates because it addresses the audience's inherent psychological priorities. Once the audience's initial defenses are lowered, the communicator can begin to guide them toward a specific future state. This is the technique of future pacing. It relies almost entirely on the directive power of a single word: imagine. The formula involves 2 steps. First, acknowledge the listener's current position to validate their hard work. Then, place them inside a specific time-bound scenario in the future. For example, "I know the current system served us well, but imagine 10 days from now driving to work in a brand new Tesla and knowing you'll never stop for gas again." Finally, you use post-acknowledgement. You speak about that future as if it's an inevitable shared victory, stating, "That will be a massive step forward for our team." Future pacing encourages listeners to temporarily live and internalize your vision, turning them from passive observers into active participants. The final step is securing a firm commitment to that vision. This is where we use the principle of consistency. Research shows that individuals feel a strong internal pressure to ensure their actions align with their previously stated beliefs. You can build this momentum by creating a yes set. By asking a series of low-stakes questions, you extract small, undeniable agreements from your audience. As these micro-agreements stack up, the final major request begins to feel like a natural continuation of the positions the audience has already taken. With early agreements secured, a final choice is simply a matter of maintaining internal consistency. These techniques, rationale triggers, rhetorical triads, and future pacing, are not just tactics. They are tools for breaking through the noise of a crowded environment. Many corporate cultures still argue that cold logic is the only way to make high-stakes decisions. However, neuroscientist Antonio Damasio found patients with damage to their emotional centers struggle to make basic choices, regardless of the logic they apply. Facts are necessary to inform an audience, but true inspiration, structured through deliberate and empathetic language, is what actually drives them to act.